Hey everybody, let's make it real. And so we're going to look at oye.org, and in the text under Nationalizing Bill of Rights, they do talk about Gitlow versus New York, but they don't give you a background as to what Gitlow versus New York is all about, even though it does say that in this case they do mention that the Bill of Rights applies not only to the federal government but also to the states. So let's look at the background of this case, because it's kind of surprising. We cite a case where the person who was petitioning for his conviction to be overturned actually lost, but there is some significance to the case. So Gitlow, Benjamin Gitlow, was a socialist. He was arrested in 1919 for distributing what was called the Left-Wing Manifesto. He talked about establishing socialism through strikes and class action of any form. New York had something called the Criminal Anarchy Law, which Gitlow was convicted under. The law punished advocating the overthrow of the government by force. At his trial, Gitlow said that there was no resulting action flowing from the publication of his manifesto. The statute, however, penalized utterances without propensity to incitement of criminal or concrete action. The appellate division affirmed his conviction, and the highest court in the state, the New York Court of Appeals, upheld it. So he took his case to the Supreme Court, and it was heard in 1923 and decided about 2 years later. So the question remains, does the First Amendment prevent a state from punishing political speech that directly advocates government's violent overthrow? And by a judgment of 7-2, the Supreme Court favored the state of New York. So Gitlow was not shielded by his freedom of speech, which is found in the First Amendment. So why are we even talking about this case? Well, if this happened, let's say, at a time, well, let me take a step back. If you go to Printers Row, when they have their big old book fair every year, you'll find many people handing out socialist flyers left and right, meaning left hand and right hand, not left and right on the scale. But they'll be handing them out to anybody who wants to read them. And you can take it and throw it away. You can take it and call the people back, go to their website or whatever. But nobody's getting arrested for it. Now, you go back to like 1919, when you're talking about the period after World War I or during World War I, heading into it, and getting to the 1920s, where you have this socialist and communist uprising, or let's say movement in the United States. There was this fear that these people who were socialist and communist were going to try to overthrow the government. So take a step back. There's a case called Schenck versus the United States, where Schenck was calling for the overthrow of his government through a manifesto as well, and it was deemed to be that he was a clear and present danger to the United States, so his speech was nullified. In this case, the same thing happens. They believe that Gitlow's speech through his manifesto is not protected under the First Amendment. However, what is most important about this case is that even though Gitlow lost, in this part right here, it said Gitlow partly reversed the old precedent that the Bill of Rights only applied to the federal government. In this case here, they're saying that the Bill of Rights was designed to limit the power of the federal government. However, the incorporation principle allows it to be applied to the states. So why is he still convicted if this is applied to the states? The key is this: if Gitlow handed out his manifesto when there wasn't a movement in the United States, he probably would have been protected. So he was at the wrong place at the wrong time. But if he was protesting something, why would you want to protest when there isn't anything going on? So here he has a protest against the government through his manifesto, and yet it's not protected. But because of this case, a manifesto like that will always be protected by the First Amendment, even in the states.